Hello and welcome to Algebra, where today we're going to learn about systems of equations and how to solve them by using substitution. Okay, so remember, systems of equation is when you have two or more linear equations. And remember when we graph them, it's like we graph them and then wherever they intersect, that is where our solution is, right? Sometimes it works better to use a process called substitution, okay? So substitution, here's our steps. So step one, solve an equation for one variable. So we want to have one of the equations solved for one variable. So if you look over here, there's two equations here. This one is already solved for y. So that's good. So we have that done. All right, so then what we do is we substitute into our other equation. So this is saying y equals x plus 1, right? So what I do is, on my other equation, I'm going to replace this y. I'm going to substitute out that y, and I'm going to replace it with x plus 1, which I did here. Then I want to solve the equation. All right, so now I'm going to solve the equation. 2x plus 1, and I can combine my like terms. 2x plus 1x would be 3x, and I still have that plus 1, and then I'm going to keep solving it, right? So I would do minus 1 to both sides, then I'm left 3x equals 6, and then I would divide by 3, and then I get x equals 2, right? Okay, so now that I know x equals 2, what I do is I take this x equals 2, I take that information, and now that I know that x equals 2, I take my, I'm going to take my x value of my first equation, and I'm going to replace that with 2. I'm going to substitute in 2. So that means I'm going to have 2 plus 1. So it's going to be y equals 2 plus 1. Well, what's 2 plus 1? Well, that is 3. So my y value is 3. All right, so our answer is always going to be an ordered pair. So I want to write it as an ordered pair. So my answer would be 2, 3, because 2 was my x value, and we're solving out 3 for my y value. So your answer is always an ordered pair. All right, you can always check your work, right? So you can check your work. So you can plug 2 in for x, right? What we did here, 2 plus 1 is 3. That's what we want, right? I could plug 2 in for x here. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I want to plug 3 in for y. 4 plus 3 will give me 7. That works. So I know that this is correct. Okay, so let's do this next one. So here's my equation. I have x plus y equals 5, and I have y equals 3 plus x. So I already have one already done. The y already equals 3 plus x. So that's already done. That's taken care of for me. Okay? So now I'm going to substitute in this 3 plus x into my first equation. I'm going to take out that y and plug in 3 plus x. So here's my first equation, that x plus 5. And now I know that y equals 3 plus x. I'm going to plug that in for y. So I took out the y, I put in these parentheses, and I'm going to put in 3 plus x. Okay? So now I have to solve it. All right, so I would distribute here, but I'm distributing a 1, so it's not going to change anything. So now I can just combine my like terms, right? So I have 1x here, and I have 1x here. Well, x plus x gives me 2x. All right, and I still have that plus 3. So 2x plus 3 equals 5. So now I want to get x by itself, so I would do minus 3. Right, so 2x plus 3 equals 5. I would do minus 3 to get rid of that 3. Do it to both sides. 5 minus 3 is 2. So now I'm left with 2x equals 2. So I want to get x by itself, so I have to get rid of that 2. So I have to divide by 2 to get rid of that and leave me with x. And I have to do the same thing to the other side. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm left with x equals 1. All right, so that is my x value, right? So my answer, that's my x value, I know is going to be 1, right? Now I have to figure out what my y value is because my answer is always an ordered pair. So now that I know that this x equals 1, I can plug it back into this other equation because y is already by itself, right? So I'm going to take that y equals 3 plus x, and then I'm going to take out the x and plug in 1. So that's going to leave me 3 plus 1. Well, what's 3 plus 1? 3 plus 1 is 4, so my y value is equal to 4. So my answer is 1, 4. All right, so I can always check my work, right? So x plus y was my first one. So I'm going to put in parentheses, plus another parentheses, and equals 5. My x value says x plus y, right? So my x value is 1. I'm going to plug that in for x. My y value is 4. 1 plus 4, does that equal 5? It does, so we got that right. The next one says y equals 3 plus x. So 3 plus x, my x value was 1, that gives me 4. Does that equal my y value? It does, so we know we got it right. Okay? So you could always plug it into the equations and see if you got the correct answer. Okay, so when you're solving for a variable, you have to try and see which one would make more sense to solve for. So if I'm looking at this 3x plus y equals 10, which one would be easier to solve for? Well, I would say solving for y would be easier because there's no coefficient in front of the y. So all I have to do is get rid of this 3x, and then I would have y by itself. So I'm going to do that. So what's the opposite of a positive 3x? That would be a negative 3x, and I would do the same thing to the other side. That leaves me with y by itself, and then on my other side I'm left with negative 3x, and then that's a positive 10, so I put plus 10. Okay, go ahead and do this one over here on your own. Go ahead and solve for which one you think is the easier one to solve for, and then solve for y. Pause your video, and then check your work when you're done. Okay, so let's do another example. All right, so I have x plus 3y equals 2, and I have 2x minus 3y equals 22. All right, so which one would be the easier one to solve for? Well, I would say this top one would be easier to solve for, and it would probably be easier to solve for the x because there's no coefficient in front of the x. So all I have to do is get rid of this positive 3y. So I could do minus 3y to both sides to get rid of this, and then I have to do the other side, and that would leave me with x equals negative 3y plus 2. All right, so I have x by itself. I have a coefficient of 1 in front of the x. All right, so now I have this by itself. So now I can take this over here and plug it into this equation. So I have 2x minus 3y. So instead of x, I'm going to plug in that negative 3y plus 2. All right, and then I still have that minus 3y, and I still have that 22. It equals 22. All right, so now I want to solve for y. I want to solve for y. So I see I have parentheses here, so I'm going to have to distribute. So I'm going to take this 2 and multiply it to both terms on the inside. 2 times negative 3y would be negative 6y, and then 2 times 2 would give me 4. That's a positive 4, so I put a plus, and then I can bring everything else down. I can bring down the minus 3y, and that equals 22. All right, so now I'm going to combine my like terms. So I'm looking over here, what can I combine? Well, I can combine this negative 6y and this minus 3y. So negative 6y minus 3y would give me negative 9y. I still have that plus 4, so I'm going to bring that down, and it's still equal to 22. So now it's a two-step equation. I want to get y by itself, so I'm going to get rid of this plus 4. I'm going to do minus 4 to get rid of it because that's the inverse operation. 22 minus 4 will give me 18. And on my left side, I still have that negative 9y. So now I want to get y by itself. I want to get rid of this negative 9. When a number is next to a variable, that means multiply, so I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide by negative 9 to both sides. And that gives me y equals negative 2. All right, so now that I know my y value, remember my answer is always an ordered pair, right? So my y value is negative 2. I got to figure out what my x value is. So I can take that negative 2 and I can plug it back into our first equation. See how it says x equals negative 3y plus 2? So I can plug in negative 2 in for y in my first equation. Negative 3 times negative 2 gives me a positive 6. 6 plus 2 gives me 8. So I know x equals 8. And then there is my answer. My x value is 8. My y value is negative 2. And remember, I could always check my work on Desmos or plugging it in by hand and doing the work, right? So my first equation was x plus 3y equals 2. So let's see, my x value was 8 plus 3. My y value was negative 2, and that gives me 2, and that's what they wanted it to equal. So we're good on that one. So let's check our next one. It's 2x. So I'm going to put 2 parentheses. My x value was 8, and then it says minus 3. My y value is negative 2, and they wanted to equal 22, and it equals 22. So we know that we got it right. Okay? There's one more here to try. Go ahead, pause the video, try this one on your own, check your work when you're done. Unpause it when you're done and check your work. All right, so you should have solved for y. I solved for y with this first one because y has a coefficient of 1, so it's easy. That's the easier one to get by itself, right? Because all I have to do is get rid of this 2x. Well, it was a positive 2x, so I did minus 2x. All right, so I get y equals negative 2x plus 4, and then I take that negative 2x plus 4 and I plug it in for y on my second equation. All right, so now I would solve for x, right? So I have negative 4x plus 8. I would do minus 8 to get x, to get rid of that 8. 8 minus 8 on this side will give me 0. And I'm left with negative 4x. All right, so now I would divide by negative 4. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. All right, so here's a 4x. So 4x minus 4x, I would have to combine those like terms, right? 4x minus 4x will give me 0. So I'm left with 0 equals 0. All right, so what does that mean in algebra? What do we learn when we have a number that's equal to the same number? Well, that means that it is all real numbers. All real numbers. All real numbers. So that would be our answer. All real numbers. And what that means is makes the exact same line. So we solved this first one, we got y equals negative 2x plus 4. If I solve this one here, I would get that same equation. So let's see here. If I would do minus 4x, and then I would divide by 2, right? So I would do, that would give me 2y equals negative 4x plus 8, and then I would divide by 2, y equals negative 2x plus 4. And you can see that's the exact same equation. So when it's the exact same equation, that means that the lines lay right on top of each other, which means that it's all real numbers. I'm sorry I made that mistake down here. I forgot to bring down the 4x. See, teachers make mistakes too. But it's right, 4x minus 4x gives me 0, so I'm left with 0 equals 0. So if you ever get something like that, 0 equals 0 or 3 equals 3, that means all real numbers. Okay, so let's go back over the steps one last time. So when we're doing this, the first thing is we want to solve to get one variable by itself. And then we take that and we plug it in for that one, right? So this one was y equals 3 plus x. So I take that and I plug it in for y in my other equation, and then I solve for it. And then whatever I get, I plug it back into the other equation and get the other variable. And my answer is always an ordered pair. All right, if you ever have any questions, ask a teacher, and I'll see you next time. Bye.